podcast. Whoops.
All right, this is going to be fun, friends. We've got Justin Bullington and Curtis Odell, both from the state of Illinois, the formerly free state of Illinois. It's now under occupation, but they still get to watch football. They still get to talk football, and that's what we're going to do tonight. Justin's got some energy drink that he's drinking there. I don't know if Curtis has...
We can talk football as long as we don't have an opinion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
So we'll talk about the games in order as they happen from Saturday afternoon till Monday night, starting with Bengals Raiders going to the Cardinals Rams. But first, I want to get everyone's opinion on the NFL's most valuable player. V standing for valuable. So, Curtis, you want to start?
Oh, it's really hard because as a Bears fan,
don't say it.
Anything Aaron Rodgers is anathema and actually turns my stomach. However, he's had quite a year, and it's hard to vote against him in some ways. However, I just have to go with the GOAT, Tom Brady. He is the best, and as long as he is playing, I don't know that anybody will ever be better. Tom Brady.
Justin?
I'm in the same boat. I will never say Aaron Rodgers. He could have thrown 7,000 yards and 900 touchdowns, and he would not be my MVP. And it has nothing to do with vaccination status at all. It has everything to do with him. He wears cowboy hats. He wears tight jeans. His dating choices are suspect. He's mean to his parents. He's very dishonorable. Do I sound like Hub Arkish to you?
Yeah, you won't be disbarred from the AP, though.
I decided before the season began, that Aaron Rodgers does not deserve the MVP award. So I'm not going to vote for him. So my vote goes to Tom Brady, and for a few reasons. Did you know he has the most passing yards? He's a leading passer.
Sure, yeah.
That's incredible. This man is 73 years old, and he's still passing. He has more passing yards than Patrick Mahomes, okay, which is wild. I mean, Patrick loves ketchup, and he is the poster boy for ketchup, and he gets all the commercials. And but for some reason,
ketchup commercials.
Yeah.
Every big name is vying for. He gets them all.
But Tom Brady he's still throwing. I think he's got 5,000 yards this year. Now I want to throw some stats at you. I was going to get into this later. The Tampa Bay Bucks are number one in expected points added per play. They're number one in ESPN's Football Power Index. They're number two team offense, according to footballreference.com. They've lost Chris Godwin. They've lost Antonio Brown. Hey, he had to deal with Antonio Brown all year long. And AB lived in his house at some point. If you're able to keep Antonio Brown from blowing up for half a season or even 3/4 of a season, you're MVP in my book. So I think you got to go with Tom Brady.
I agree.
Makes sense to me.
How about you, Tiffy?
I mean, Tom Brady, how do you argue with that? Other than the Packers having a better record, and the Packers lost their only game and their offense was anemic without Aaron Rodgers against their game against the Chiefs. You saw the value there that he added. Tom Brady, though, obviously, I saw those numbers the other day. He's number one in several passing categories. It's we all just taken for granted that it's oh yeah. It's almost like you become like numb to it, where it's like you just have already assumed that Tom Brady is first in all these categories, so you just gloss over
Right.
his name. So yeah, the numbers is incredible. Just factoring in, is he 44, 43?
I think he's 44.
One of those ages. It's just he's older than me.
He's older than me.
He's older than you. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like he's
he's thrown for a 5K. He's thrown for a 5K.
Wow.
Takes me an hour to run a 5K. And he's thrown it.
But even with all that said,
You guys are old. Wow.
I think I have to pick Aaron Rodgers for most valuable player.
Should we end this now, or how's this?
Maybe we should. But
yeah,
Aaron Rodgers, non-football related, is when he first came in the league his first 2 years, I followed him on Twitter. He's like real relatable. He interacted a lot with not Kenny Rogers. Remember, you know that guy?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But he's just like real down to earth and humble. And then like, oh, that's a cool guy. And then he started dating famous girls. And then he just got like stranger and stranger. I feel like he's getting less strange now. But he's still like Justin was saying, like that weird thing with his family and whatnot. And I think his brother, right? They don't talk or whatever, but it's just like bizarre. But I feel like all that came from he started dating famous women, and then he just like
the evolution of his religious beliefs has been hideous to watch.
Yeah,
and that's just football aside from football, but like, that's just it makes me not care for his opinion. And
well, Tom Brady, upstanding guy. You know, just but he's not quite as weird, but I think he's probably, I think he's got a little history there too himself. But on the field, both those guys incredible. It's so much fun to watch, and hopefully it'll be fun if they met in the playoffs to game up in Green Bay, where with Tom Brady, with how well he did, obviously in weather games with the Patriots. But he can still do that at 44.
Here's a question for you guys. What happens to Aaron Rodgers' legacy if he doesn't win a Super Bowl this year with the Packers? How will you remember him? Let's say he gets the MVP, but he can't get past the NFC Championship game, or he loses to, some team in the Super Bowl.
He's basically the Reggie Miller of the NFL.
Ooh. Wow.
Reggie Miller.
He's won one. Reggie didn't.
Never won one, but
Well, hey, here's my cat.
When was Rodgers' Super Bowl? Was that 2010, 2011?
Good question.
Yeah.
It was after I was married, so it had to have been 2010 or 2011.
If only we had some way to find out.
Yeah, some type of.
Well, I'm going to fax that question over to the Green Bay Packers. I am part owner of the Packers. They won in 2010, Super Bowl 45.
Wow.
So
it's a long time ago.
It does seem like his legacy will be like further tarnished as like not being as he could have, being as good as and successful as he could have been. Because if all of his teams have been so good, I don't know, this is at least the second time in recent memory where his teams had the number one seed going into the playoffs. And his defenses are always really bad. So it's not all on him, but it's still like we all look at quarterbacks and judge them by Super Bowls. So if he doesn't win it this year, or at least even get to the Super Bowl, that's definitely going to hurt. But us Browns fans are hoping the Packers don't do well in the playoffs, because I think that's our only hope of, if there is even a remote chance of him coming to the Browns, they would have to not win the Super Bowl.
Really?
Yeah.
I hate to bring it to you. It's not happening.
He needs to lose, and then we got to offer him whatever $55 million a year and a 5-10% stake of the Browns.
Fully
franchise.
guaranteed for 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's not going to happen, Tim. I'm sorry.
No.
He's not going to go to Cleveland. He's got his heart set in L.A. You know, he wants to go to the Steelers. I'm sorry.
Steelers?
It's not gonna
No,
happen.
he's not going to the Steelers.
I think he's going there.
Really?
Going to this. He's
Don't
definitely
say
not
that.
going to the Browns. I'm
Don't
sorry.
say the Steelers.
I mean, you've
couldn't
got as
handle it.
much chance to get him as the Bears do.
Well, remember last year, the Bears thought we were going to get Deshaun Watson, and we thought we were going to get Russell Wilson, and who else? Somebody else. But those were the guys who were like, we're going to get those guys. One of those guys is coming to the Bears.
Yeah. The Browns, if we get somebody good, it's going to end up being like Deshaun Watson. Then we're all going to be like, maybe he was innocent. Maybe we'll have to really talk ourselves into cheering for him, I think.
30 people are all lying.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started with Bengals Raiders. We got Bengals and Raiders both 10 wins, 7 losses. The Bengals have won 3 of 4. The one loss, their last game of the season, they rested obviously Burrow and some other key contributors and starters against my beloved Browns. This year they lost to the Jets. They got blown out twice, but they're 5.5-point favorites here against the Raiders. The Raiders have won 4 straight, all against playoff contenders. So at the time they played these last 4 games, each of their opponents was in playoff contention. So both teams had a lot to play for. They won each of those games. They're stomped by the Chiefs twice, real bad. But then they played the Bengals earlier this year in Las Vegas, and the Bengals won 32-13. The score being probably a little closer than, or the competitiveness of the game closer being than what the score indicates. I think it was like 19-13, 16-13, halfway through the fourth quarter or something. So what's your take on this game? Start with Curtis.
Well, I think, it's really important to remember that they lost their head coach. I mean, their offensive mind, their guru early on in the season, and they've been able to do this. Usually when a team loses their head coach, the Raiders, that is death for the postseason for sure. So that's an amazing comeback in my world. I'm really impressed by that. And I think Derek Carr he's probably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL in my world. Maybe it's because they're toward the West Coast and we're Midwest, and so we don't hear as much about them. But man, 4,800 yards passing. He's 23 touchdowns. He knows how to run an offense, knows how to throw the ball all over the place. So they're legitimate. I have a hard time thinking they're going to lose to the Bengals. Now the Bengals obviously offensively are a juggernaut. Joe Burrow is something else, but I'm leaning toward the Raiders.
Wow. Awesome.
Justin, what are you thinking? Why such a strong reaction?
I love that. I love that he chose the Raiders here. That's good. I like Derek Carr. I almost said David Carr. I like Derek
Did I say
Carr
David?
a lot. And no, I did. I almost said David. You're good. I think he was the third quarterback that you were talking about earlier that almost went to the Bears. Or at least there was some discussion about
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Because John Gruden was getting a little bit it seemed that he's getting a little perturbed with him.
Said we got Andy Dalton, but whatever.
Here's some hard truths for the Raiders. Okay, here's some hard truths for the Raiders and why I will not pick the Raiders to win this. Okay, the Raiders are a dome team. Okay, they play in the dome and they're coming to Cincinnati. They'll play in the elements. The temperature will hover around freezing during the game, and the wind will be around 10 miles per hour. So there's your weather report for this game. Now the Bengals also, here's some good news for the Raiders. The Bengals allowed 9 loud sacks on 9% of pass plays during the regular season, the second most in the NFL. which bodes well for the Raiders defense because they ranked 6th in pressure percentage with 32.8%. So that's a bright spot. They're going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Joseph Montgomery Burrow. Okay. Both teams have really great passing offenses. Raiders are ranked 6th and the Bengals are ranked 7th in the league. Both teams threw 14 picks on the year, so they are a little bit turnover prone. We might see some of that going on. The Raiders, the issue though, is that the Raiders defense ranks near the bottom of the league. Okay. The Raiders allow, this is a crazy stat here. Okay. I love this stat. The Raiders allow a touchdown 81.4% of the time in the red zone this season. So 81% of the time a team makes it in the red zone, they score a touchdown against the Raiders. The next closest defense is the Detroit Lions at 70%. Also, the Raiders have a negative 65 scoring differential, which is the worst playoff team scoring differential in NFL history. This is why I'm a little bit scared to pick the Raiders here, why I'm going to end up choosing the Bengals for this game. I don't know how you stop Jamar Chase. Vegas has a really weak defense, so I expect a huge game from Joe Mixon. The Bengals are scoring an average of 37.5 points in the last 2 weeks. The Bengals penalty count differential is plus 44. Plus 44. They have the fewest penalty yards in the league. So that's a really disciplined.
Plus 44 penalties or yardage?
Penalty count differential. So penalties.
Wow.
Total.
Wow.
And the fewest penalty yards in the league. So whereas the Raiders have the worst penalty count differential at minus 25. So they're a very undisciplined team. So you have a very disciplined team playing at home in the division or in the wild card, in the elements against the team that plays in the dome. I am going to go with the Bengals.
Seen that much discipline since reading Matthew chapter 18.
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
This is the Tim Bates I love.
By the way, ESPN shows the Bengals. Not that it matters. 538 shows the Bengals. And so I think I got to go there. Also, in their last matchup, the Bengals had 1 penalty for 5 yards. The Raiders had 7 penalties for 77 yards. Fun fact, the same ref that game will be ref this game this weekend.
Ooh,
wow.
That's something.
This is like, who's in the NBA? There's some superstar. I think it's Chris Paul. Whenever, I forget who the guy is, whenever he officiates his games, playoff games, he's like 0-11 or something like that.
Yeah, he loses every time. I can't remember his name either.
Yeah.
Wish there was a way to check it out. I'll try to fax it into
Yeah, try to get that faxed over if you can.
the
Or
Phoenix
email. I think I finally got some electronic mail set up.
Okay, let's see. Oh, you have electronic mail now.
I'm working on it. I think I'm getting that set up.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's good.
Justin, I have to say that I am impressed with your statistics and the things that you brought to the table. And certainly you don't come limping in to a fight. I appreciate that. No.
Man, I prepare.
I appreciate that. I would argue, and not that we're here to argue, but I would argue that the many of those numbers probably are inflated as a result of losing their coach, the struggles that they had early in the season. And what they have done in the last 4 games, especially, has been something that movies are written about.
Yes,
that's just how it feels.
They're not backing in. They're not backing into the playoffs.
No, they're coming in full throttle, and they have done some good things. They've run the ball really well. And if you're going to be a dome team playing in the cold, you're going to have to run the ball. And Josh Jacobs, while not having the numbers that you would hope. I mean, he's still well over 1,200 yards total, offense, receiving and rushing, and putting up over 9 touchdowns. So he's moving the ball pretty well, and I think that's going to be a real help to them, especially in cold weather. They've run the ball real well, and Hunter Renfrow, I think, he's a stud. I mean, he's playing some good ball. Now, that does not match with Jamar Chase. It doesn't match with Joe Mixon or Joe Burrow. But I think there's some. It'll be interesting to see how they can defensively hold up to the Bengals' potent offense.
Yeah, the Bengals offense is a lot of fun to watch. Just Burrow's got those 3 receivers that all seem to like take over at some point for a drive. They'll catch 3 or 4 passes on a drive, and each guy ends up with 75 yards receiving at least and 1 touchdown or something. But yeah, Chase he's fun to watch. I think he's just such a playmaker. It's hard to pick against him. And Burrow, I just think so much about that LSU season. For whatever reason, I watched LSU like every game that year, and just each game is like this guy like has that it factor. As cliche as that sounds, but just watching him is like, man, like take this guy number 1 overall. This is the clearest number 1 overall pick I thought since maybe Andrew Luck.
And he hasn't disappointed.
No, he hasn't. And I was waiting for him and the Bengals to take over maybe next year, the year after that, the AFC North, and they did it this year. They spent a ton of money in the offseason on defensive players, which is what they needed to, but they've drafted so well and acquired so much talent offensively that they're looking like a pretty complete team. They just have those hiccups every once in a while throughout the season. It's hard to imagine a team that lost to the Browns and that as badly as they did this year. That first game when both teams were actually playing, the Browns stomped them. And then they also lost to the Jets. The Raiders had their fair share of shocking, I think, losses. But to Curse's point, you lose your coach and you go through all the other off-the-field drama that they went through. It's kind of to be expected. But
you guys want to know a little bit of degrees of separation? I'm connected to Joe Burrow. You want to know about it?
Yeah, well, at this point, yeah.
Yeah, you have to now.
Yeah.
So let's see if I can do this right. Joe Burrow's dad, this isn't really that hard. Joe Burrow's father was a next door neighbor to my wife.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's not hard at all. That's very close.
Well, what makes it hard then is that she was very good friends with Joe Burrow's half brothers. So then I believe he maybe got a divorce or something like that, got remarried, and then had Joe Burrow in a second marriage. So my wife is somehow connected, to Joe.
How many years ago was this?
I don't know, 30.
Oh, okay.
30-ish.
Did she grow up in Ohio?
No, she grew up in Iowa.
Oh.
Ames, Iowa. Home of the Cyclones.
Yeah.
Iowa State Cyclones.
Yeah. Well, how about
We're
that?
big Cyclone fans.
Oh,
yeah. So that's my connection. Not really, but that's my wife's connection to Joe Burrow's half siblings.
What do you guys think about Derek Carr? As far as I'm aware, a pretty strong believer. How do you pick against that? Wild card round, strong Christian quarterback. You're going to pick against that?
What I'm amazed by is whether he wins or loses, he gives glory to God in such an amazing way. And so I know that according to God's perfect providence, he may have the Raiders lose, and Derek Carr will sing the praises of the Savior either way.
Yeah, he's like genuinely like an impressive guy, and how he handled that that terrible car accident this year. Some of the stuff he says, like, wow, that's like not just your typical generic, quasi-Christian pro athlete speaking. That's
He's no Tim
somebody
Tebow.
Wow. Was that a dig at Tebow or was that
You'll never know.
oh man. Well, I kind of like the Raiders to win. I like everything that you guys said. I agree with, but it's just one of those games. It's like it just seems like the Bengals. Maybe next year they'll get over that hump and win a playoff game, for the first time in years. But it just seems like the Raiders might squeak this one out and something like 27-24, some type of game like that or something. They have a good kicker
fair.
too. They were really, really good. Probably second best kicker in the NFL. So that's
I
worth
think
something.
there's going to be they're going to be running the ball. Both teams are going to be running the ball. I think we're going to see a lower score. I think we're going to see something like 17-7.
Wow, it's a real low score.
Yeah, there's also a lot of athletes on that field, and 22 to be exact. But I think that I probably push higher. 27-20. I think we're within a touchdown. I think it's about a touchdown. We'll put the Raiders ahead.
Yeah, Vegas has it at 49 for your over/under there.
Oh, oops.
I mean, just don't bet, okay?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess. So are we gonna have are you gonna keep a running total of who picks right and who picks wrong?
Ooh, I might have to, but we might have to submit those afterwards because there's no way I can multitask.
Okay.
Not in one of my strong suits. I can barely single task, let alone multitask. All right, so next game. This one's I'm going to be real excited for. Prime time game, Patriots, Bills. Their third meeting in the last, month and a half, 2 months or something. It's going to be another weather game looking like 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, what would that be, Celsius? Negative something.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're in America.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is America.
Exactly.
Actually, I have the real feel at 0
Oh, really?
in Buffalo.
Yeah, so there's some wind and stuff. And I don't see any. Is there going to be any snow? Might be almost too cold to snow at that point. But. Patriots 10-7. They've lost 3 of 4. This year they split the series with the Bills. That only win they've had in their last 4 games was against, I think, the Jaguars. It was a blowout, but make of that what you will with the Jaguars. Yeah, it's against Jacksonville. Bills are 11-6, 4-point favorites. Their margin of victory, I think one of the 2 highest, maybe the highest in the NFL this year. They've won 4 straight. All of those have been by double digits. Curtis, you want to kick us off again?
Well, yeah, I struggle with this one because I'm not a Patriots fan, but as I mentioned with the MVP discussion, Tom Brady is the best to ever do it, and I would tell you that Bill Belichick is the best to ever do it as far as coaching in the NFL. So I think Bill Belichick is unbelievable. He is a genius. He puts people in position to be successful that you would never assume could do it. He would. He is really, yeah. I'll sing his praises all day long. But that being said, the Bills are the real deal. I've thought so all year. I think they've thrown some clunkers up there at times, and it's been a kind of a surprise to see them have some struggles. But Josh Allen, 4,400 yards passing, 763 yards rushing. He's unbelievable. He's a stud. He is he's hard to stop, and I think between with I think Devin Singletary has been coming on strong, as well as Stephon Diggs, of course, always. I just don't know if there's any. I don't know if the Patriots are going to have the firepower to stop the offense of the Bills. I do think that Mac Jones is not as bad as people think he is. They had that running game where what did he throw, like 2 passes the whole game or something like that. But he's got 3,800 yards passing. I mean, he's 22 touchdowns. He's playing some pretty good ball, and they just kind of spread the ball all over the place. Damian Harris is their running back. He's got about 1,000 yards. Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, their tight end. It's kind of he's their red zone threat. He's had 9 touchdowns. They're going to be tough. That being said, I usually never pick against Bill Belichick, but I'm going to pick the Bills.
Justin.
That's a good pick. There's nothing I can really disagree with there. Although this does seem like a Belichickian game to win, doesn't it? It just does. It feels weird. The weather. My favorite quote was from August when he said this. It's really insightful, and I'm probably going to incorporate it in my daily life. Bill Belichick said this: "If it rains, it rains. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it's hot, it's hot. If it's not, that's what it is." And so, I mean, that's the Belichickian attitude. They're gonna compete no matter what. I think that 700 yards that you mentioned of his running, of Josh Allen's running this year, is going to come into play. I think he's going to use his legs a lot. These are actually the 2 top scoring defenses in all of the NFL. Okay, meaning they allow the least amount of yards. So they are coming head to head. This is going to be a bloodbath. To me, it's going to come down to which quarterback do you trust the most, and do I trust the most? Josh Allen does some goofy things too. Mac Jones is a rookie, but Josh Allen does some goofy things from time to time, and he'll make mistakes. He'll throw picks, but I gotta go with the Bills on this one. I think the Bills are gonna prevail. This is only the 4th time that two top scoring defenses have met in the wild card round, which is really interesting to me. And the list of teams who have won 11 or more games while going winless in games decided by 7 points or less are 2. Okay, in NFL history, the 1999 Rams, they won a championship, and the 2021 Bills. And so for whatever reason, the Bills don't do well late in games. So, and at least games decided by 7 points or less. So this does feel a little Bill Belichickian. It feels like a game that he can win, but I'm going to go with the Bills.
When you're reading that Belichick quote, I'm thinking of 2 Corinthians 4, Paul's treasure in jars of clay passage, where he says, afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven. Just not even like I don't think Belichick's a believer, but just that mindset of, sure, these things may happen. When they happen, we'll deal with them. We'll just, do what we have to do to adjust, which is what Paul's kind of imploring us to do there, where it's, these things are going to happen. You might have some prosperity, you may have affliction, but we're doing all these things for the glory of God. Belichick doing all things to win a football game, trying to maximize each, whatever the elements may be. I like the Bills. I've liked them all season. Any team that wins as many games as decisively as they did, there's obviously something going on there where they are able to impose their will against an opponent. And then I like that they avenged that loss to the Patriots. that a Monday night game? I think that one was the where Mac Jones never passed the ball, all but 2 times. I think it was a Monday night game. But that just seemed like oh no, this could unravel the Bills. Like, can't get over this hump. But they finished the season really well. They played the Patriots again in New England and won decisively there. And I think Josh Allen played extremely well that game. And that's a guy who his arm strength and his size, I think both will help in the weather where it's, a guy smaller with smaller hands, just less body, I think is going to struggle more so in the cold and in the weather than Josh Allen would, which I think Belichick understood that too. That's why Mac Jones didn't throw the ball that game, and they just happened to have a good working running game that game. But there's not going to be as much wind as there was in that game. And I think Brian Daboll was, I think, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, is one of the best minds in the game, and I think he'll figure out something to get the ball moving towards the end zone, and they'll be able to. And even that game, I think they moved it pretty well. They just didn't close out and score points, but then they won the next game anyway, so it's kind of all moot. So I like the Bills, probably 28 to 20, something like that. I think that they can win. Not decisively necessarily, but they'll win. And it won't be, coming down to the last second.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be low scoring, 24-21, maybe something close to that, maybe even lower than that. And I think it's going to be a grinded out type of game. I think we've got, they're going to run the ball a lot. And I don't know. I have, 24-21. That's what I'd say.
I'm going to go with a field goal and a safety. So I think the New England Patriots. I don't know. I think it's going to be 3-2.
Wow.
All my picks are just going to be the lowest scores ever. 3-2.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That would be pretty fun. But are you picking the Patriots or the Bills?
He's picking the Bills.
I got
All
the
three
Bills.
of us are picking the Bills.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the Bills. I think the Bills have to win this game. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think this next one's really easy to pick too.
We got next game, Eagles from Philadelphia, Buccaneers from Tampa Bay. Eagles 9-8, won 4 of their last 5. Overall this year, 1-6 versus teams with winning records. Tampa Bay has a winning record. That winning record, to be specific, to be exact, is 13-4. They've won 3 in a row, 7 of 8. They're 8.5-point favorites. The last I looked. Now this one I feel like is probably, it's the easiest game in the NFC to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, what do you think?
I think you're right. I think it's easy to pick because this is Nick Sirianni's first, playoff game. This is Jalen Hurts' first playoff game. They're on the road. They're playing Tampa Bay, Tom Brady. Again, this is so cliche. Everyone says this. You win against Tom Brady if you can pressure Tom Brady, right? Like, you have to pressure him. And so Fletcher Cox has had 41 pressures in 462 pass rushing snaps this year. Okay, and he's hurried Brady 3 times in week 6. So there's a chance that Philadelphia, if Fletcher Cox is unleashed, okay, he's getting old, there's a chance that Philadelphia can put a lot of pressure on him and get this win. But listen, Hurts has had a season low 17.9% of his passes go for a first down against Tampa Bay in week 6. That was problematic. That's problematic. The Bucks they've only lost 1 game at home this season and are 6-2 against the spread as home favorites. However, they're missing Chris Godwin. They're missing Antonio Brown, Levante David, and Richard Sherman. But they're getting back Leonard Fournette, Shaquille Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. So I think we're going to see a ton of Rob Gronkowski. I think this is going to be the Gronkowski game. He's going to get a lot of targets from Tom Brady, and I just do not see any way that the Eagles are going to be able to overcome the reigning Super Bowl champs. One bright spot for Philadelphia is they are one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, and the Bucs defense is allowing around 109 rushing yards per game, and so their rushing attack could limit the Bucs' possessions and could limit Tom Brady's field time. And so if Philadelphia can this sounds like I'm a Bears fan. This is how the Bears talk all the time. This is how we talk as Bears fans. If we can limit possessions and if we can control the ball for a very long time, we can win the game. Usually what that means is we're not going to win the game. And so
Right.
I do not think that Philadelphia has a chance.
I agree. Can I just speak up, Tim? Is that okay? You're the host, but
go for it.
I don't mean to step on your toes. Yeah, I don't think there's any way it's even going to be close. And I hate to say that because I know I've watched enough of these podcasts and pregame shows when everybody says there's no way it's going to be close, it's close. And but I think, you know, when you stand Jalen Hurts and Tom Brady side by side, honestly just take the lines. And yes, Philly has run the ball well, but I don't know if there's a more sure offensive line or one that I would trust more than the Bucs. And they always are protecting. I mean, Leonard Fournette has 1,200 yards from scrimmage. He is 10 total touchdowns. He's been in and out, injured. Hasn't been real consistent. Yeah, I just don't think there's any chance it's close.
It's weird about Tampa Bay because last year they were so dominant against the run. Their run defense, nobody could move the ball against them. And then this year, they've kind of faded off, but they finished with a better regular season record. And I think they defended the pass better this year than last year and got more pressure. But yeah, it's hard to imagine Philadelphia winning this game. And I didn't realize they had played earlier this year. That's something I thought I looked up for each game. But yeah, it's 28-22, that game at Philadelphia in October, which is, I guess, kind of closer than I would have expected because the Eagles weren't even playing that well at that time. But the
What week was
Eagles,
that?
was week 6. But the Eagles, they won 4 of their last 5, but I think all those games they won were against really bad teams. So it's like how much, the schedule, NFC East is a really bad division. They beat the Jets, Redskins twice, and the Giants. And then that last game of the season, they gave up 51 to Dallas. So it's like, how good are these 9 wins that they even have? They lost to the Giants earlier this year, which I feel like counts as 2 losses. But
I mean,
Tampa Bay is just playing so well. Bruce Arians, really, really, really good coach. Obviously, win the Super Bowl last year, and then they have Tom Brady and getting some of those injured players back. Shaquille Barrett, I think, is going to be that's huge for them. And then even to just not be missing all of those skill players. At that one point, they were missing Antonio Brown, Evans, Godwin, and Fournette, I think, one of those games late in the season. And it's like, oh, what's going to happen to this team in the playoffs? And now I think, Godwin's out for the year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ACL, I believe.
But Evans is back and healthy, and Fournette's coming back. And
Gronk is rounding out. Gronk is coming back really well.
Yeah, and Antonio Brown, skilled player, obviously has all the skill in the world, but he is what he is. So
what happened with him?
I don't know. What did happen? That's
really
a good question.
I'm done with this.
Yeah. It was so yeah.
You have had a lot of concussions too. So I'll be watching for that. I'll be watching for signs.
He might be,
Yeah,
the pulpit
good.
one Sunday morning. You guys don't respond well to something he says.
Undoing my tie, throwing it into
He's
the
done.
pews.
He's done.
Uh,
Yeah, I like Tampa Bay pretty decisively here. Which,
Yeah.
going back to what Curtis said, this, I know it's going to somehow end up being a close game. But it should be like 30 to 13 or something like that.
whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree. That's pretty much where I'd put them. Same score and everything.
Wow.
10-3
Oh, yeah,
Bucks.
could be. All right, so this next game I think is the most intriguing game of this opening round for me. You got the 49ers and the Cowboys. 49ers 10-7, finished 7-2 second half of the season, 6-3 on the road. Cowboys are 5-point favorites, 12-5 record. They won 5 of their last 6, but their record was only 6-5 outside of their extremely weak division. So what do we think is going to happen in this game? It's at Dallas. It'll be a 4:30 kickoff Sunday afternoon. What are we going to see happen, Justin?
Well, you have let's talk about the coaches. Okay, you have the genius. I think Kyle Shanahan is an absolute genius. His schemes are brilliant. You have this amazing coach on the 49ers side, and then you have Mike McCarthy, who is not Kyle Shanahan. That's all I'll say about that. There's a distinct difference in coaching abilities. However, Dallas is plus 14 turnover differential. By the way, I'm not saying I feel that way about Mike McCarthy because he was a Packers coach.
He did win a Super Bowl. He did.
Yeah, and he was known as a genius for a long time.
Yeah, it was an act. He didn't. It wasn't about him.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl, even though he's also not that good. Wait a second.
Okay, Dallas has a plus 14 turnover differential. San Francisco is a -4. They're near the bottom of the league there. So Jimmy Garoppolo, how much do you trust him? Okay, he's got his thumb is still recovering. Now he did have a great game in week 18. So to bring the 49ers back in order to get them into the playoffs. So that's good. Cowboys just have too much offense. They have had 40 or more points in 5 games this season, 50 plus points twice in the last 3 games. The Cowboys scored more points in 3 games than the Chicago Bears probably did all season long. Humiliating. I mean, that's a lot of points. The Cowboys are 5-1 in their last 6 meetings. The 49ers, in the last 6 meetings with the 49ers, including a 41-33 victory last season without Dak Prescott at home. So I just feel like a team that has to rely on Jimmy Garoppolo is in trouble. However, the 49ers run a ton of misdirection. They run more motion and misdirection than any other team in the league, which will cut down on pressures for Jimmy Garoppolo, those quick pass rushers. Is his name Trevor Lawrence, I think, his name, and Micah Parsons too, who are exceptional defensive players on the Cowboys side. So hopefully that
Trevor Lawrence is a long-haired quarterback for the Jacksonville.
Oh, Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, what was the Lawrence on the Cowboys?
DeMarcus Lawrence?
Yeah, something.
Or is that DeMarcus Ware? Or it could also be
Lawrence. There's a Lawrence, like a linebacker or something.
Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. So they'll be able to get mismatches that they want. Kyle Shanahan is way smarter than Mike McCarthy. But I believe the Cowboys are going to end up winning this game. It's at home. It's in Dallas. Sorry, Cowboys game. Cowboys win.
The Cowboys, although they have been scoring like crazy over the last few weeks, the last 4 out of 5 games, here's who they played. They played the Saints, and they won 27-17. They played Washington, won 27-20. They played the Giants, won 21-6, and then they played Washington again and won 56-14. I mean, that's 4 of their last 5, and then they lost to the Cardinals. So I'm telling you, I'm certainly not a fan of the Cowboys. I will pretty much pick every team other than the Cowboys unless they're playing the Packers, and then I just pray for all the power to go out and they can't play. That's kind of how I think between the Cowboys and the Packers. But I think the Cowboys have really some bloated stats. They lost to the Raiders. They lost to the Cardinals. They blew out the Falcons. They've had one of the weakest schedules, and lost to the Chiefs. So I think that they are. They have bloated numbers that I don't think are going to be substantiated in the playoffs. I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think we're going to see that kind of offense. Although, I mean, goodness gracious, the guys they have, you got Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, of course, Dak Prescott is throwing the ball all over the yard. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. I mean, there's Dalton Schultz. I mean, they're getting the ball to those guys, and they're getting some major yards, scoring touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott has almost 1,300 yards, on the season. It's just there's some good talent. I just think their numbers are bloated. Then you realize on the other side of the ball, the Niners, Jimmy Garoppolo is average at best. He's average, but all he's got to do is give one little crease, get the ball to Deebo Samuels with one crease, and it's over. And you got George Kittle, who's healthy again, and there's some. Deebo Samuels has almost 1,800 yards total yards from scrimmage and 14 total touchdowns. He's a man child. He's a man among boys on that field. It has been, and I think it's gonna be tough to keep him. And you put all your defense toward Deebo. Well, then all you got is George Kittle running the seam. And you can't defend them both well. You safety over coverage, and you try to protect against the George Kittle stuff. But then you got Deebo Samuels coming underneath. And it's just there's just no way to really. It's going to be tough, really tough to defend that. So I'm going Niners.
Yeah, the 49ers are going to get. I think it's looking that Trent Williams is going to be back, their left tackle.
Oh yeah,
which they're going to need him against Parsons, and he's just a madman. So if they get him back, I think that's huge for them. And Kyle Shanahan was a coach for the Browns for a while, and they let him. I think he was the offensive coordinator. And the team put up just way above the sum of their parts on offense when he was there. Everybody says he's one of the brightest minds in the NFL right now, and it's hard to argue that when you see what he's done with Garoppolo. They went to that Super Bowl a few years ago, and they're playing really well right now. Here's this last half of the season. And I was watching, I can't remember the game. I think it might have been against the Packers, the 49ers Packers game. And Garoppolo just looked awful that game. They still almost won the game somehow. But then I was watching another game or two throughout the year, and then Garoppolo, I'm watching, I was like, man, he is like threading that ball all over the field. He's making really good choices. It's like, this guy looks like a completely different quarterback than the last game I saw him. I mean, that's what you get with him. But if he's on and he's got a good track record in the playoffs, this just seems like a bad matchup for Dallas. And when they played that game against Oakland, I think that was a Thanksgiving Day game, it was just like Oakland, there was just no resistance with them moving the ball. And it's like when Dallas is backpedaling, they're not like well suited to come out as the victors. I think that's what's going to happen here, because Shanahan is, I think, going to be able to get together, to get something together to keep Dallas on their toes, keep them backpedaling throughout the game. So I like the 49ers to win this one, keep it in a low-scoring game, and to Curtis's point, I think they have the best player on the field in Deebo Samuel. So maybe winning 23-17, 23-20, something like that for San Francisco.
I'm thinking a little higher. I think it's going to be in the 30s. I think we're talking like 35-31 or something like that. I think it's going to be a shootout.
Both defenses have ranked in the top 10 for fewest points allowed. And I think that'll come into play. I think the Cowboys get enough turnovers. I think the 49ers give away enough turnovers. I think Trayvon Diggs gets an interception. And I think the Cowboys win 30-20.
Isn't the story with Trayvon Diggs? He gets an interception, but the guy he's covering, gets 150 yards receiving.
Yeah. He's given up over 1,000 yards in coverage this year.
Yeah. I remember somebody, the one podcast I listened to, I think they were talking about Diggs, and they're saying like, oh, he leads in interceptions, but then like, guess who is like one of the worst rated cornerbacks in coverage as far as giving up yardage, and it's like not all about just getting interceptions. If you're
so maybe he just should have been a receiver then.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
There we go.
Like he's Stephon Diggs' brother? Or,
yeah,
I think they're related, aren't they?
I don't know.
I think they're the brothers. Pretty sure they're brothers.
I say yes. We'll say yes.
Yeah.
I love this next game. This is my favorite game.
Steelers and Chiefs.
Yeah.
The Browns fan, that one, it's tough to accept that this Steelers team, which is probably the worst Steelers team I've ever watched in my life, somehow made the playoffs. 9-7-1 record. That one tie, which should count as multiple losses, was to the Lions. Won three of their last four. You can look for yourself and see who those games were against and whether those teams had much to play for or not. They're outscored on the year, just like the Raiders were. So they have to have probably one of the three worst score differentials for a playoff team in NFL history, because they barely did better than the Raiders this year. The Chiefs are 12-5. They've won 9 of their last 10. Just a few weeks ago, they beat the Steelers 36-10. They are 12.5-point favorites last I saw. Curtis, what are you thinking?
I was in the truck with my son this evening. We were coming home and talking about the playoffs, and he said, "Dad, I think the Steelers have a chance. That they have been running the ball. Najee Harris is a stud. I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to put it together. I think he's going to have the game of his life."
No way.
And he said Deontay Johnson is unbelievable. I think they said, I am not a believer in Patrick Mahomes, and I think they're going to shock the world. And I looked at him and I said, "You are so stupid. I have raised you better." No, I didn't really say that. But I said,
out of the truck. Yeah.
Yeah. Pull over. We're getting up. No, I said, I respectfully disagree with you, son.
Oh.
I said, yeah, I just can't even believe that you are my child. But no, you think about Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and really, even the running game has come along. It's not great, but they've kind of running back by committee between Edwards-Helaire and Williams, and they've put some points on the board. Of course, they hasn't been the dominant Kansas City Chiefs that we've seen in the past. They haven't been the same kind of team, and really Patrick Mahomes hasn't been the dominant passer that we've seen in the past. He's still thrown for almost 5,000 yards, but his rating is down. He's down to a 98.5 passer rating, which is not normal for him. But I think there's not even I don't even know if they'll be in it for 5 minutes. I don't know the Steelers will be in it for 5 minutes. I think that Chiefs are going to throttle forward, and it'll be over.
He's right. Big Ben agrees with you because Big Ben just said this. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. He said, "We don't have a chance, so let's just go in and have fun." Big Ben said that. So that's your quarterback.
That's a leader for you.
That's honesty.
Yeah, so Mahomes is 42-1 when the Chiefs allow fewer than 27 points. You think Big Ben's gonna get more than 27 points? I don't think so. Kansas City's posted 28 or more points in 5 consecutive games. Steelers have only beaten 2 playoff teams all season long compared to the Chiefs. This is kind of a weird stat here, but I really appreciated this. The Chiefs had the best defensive DVOA in the league against passes in the short middle. So DVOA is defense adjusted value over average. But the Steelers ranked 30th in offensive DVOA on these passes, but threw more of them than all but 2 other offenses. So the Chiefs' strengths, defense up the middle, is the Steelers' weakness, which is passing up the middle, which the Steelers emphasize that the most in their offense. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers offensively will be a mess. This will be a very ugly send-off for Big Ben. He may walk off in 2 or 3 walking boots. He may just cover himself with bubble wrap. He may fake some sort of injury at some point. Just start limping, maybe even in the pregame, just because he knows this is going to get ugly. That's the way Big Ben plays. So it is going to be the Chiefs by a million.
Wow. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. Well, it was the Browns Steelers game a few weeks ago. Baker played terrible, like very inefficient. But his final numbers, just statistically, he was more efficient than Roethlisberger. Even the Steelers won that game, but Roethlisberger threw like 50 passes for like 120 yards or something like that. So I have just never seen anything like that where it's he's averaging. So his, what would that be, like a little over 2 yards per pass attempt. So it's just unbelievable. Like, just run the ball at that point or something. But just watching him, he's just like, oh, he's flat-footed now, and he just has these weird throws all the time. So for you to even entertain the idea that they could be in the market for Aaron Rodgers is unsettling to me, because that means if they can make the playoffs with this Ben Roethlisberger, then what they would do with a left-handed Aaron Rodgers, they would be probably 12-5 next year or something. But yeah, there's no way I could pick against the Chiefs here. Seems like a no-doubter, honestly. And the only game the Chiefs have lost in the last couple months was that game against the Bengals, in which they were on the wrong end of some controversial calls all throughout the fourth quarter. So even that was a game that, it's in the box score, and even just with your eyes, it didn't really seem like they were outplayed. So it's hard to pick against them. It's going to be hard to pick against the Chiefs at any point this postseason, but especially when you're playing against the worst playoff team in the Steelers. So I'm liking the Chiefs there. I think it should be pretty decisive. But the Steelers do have a way of, they beat the Bills this year. They beat the Titans. If you watch either of those games, they did not look like the better team, but they came out as the victor. Really, in probably 7 of their 9 wins this year, they didn't look like the better team, but they just kept winning football games, which is apparently all that matters in a competition, is if you outscore your opponents, no matter how it looks. So how do you, speaking about, you were talking about with talking football with your son, what about the rest of your family dynamic there in regards to watching football? Are they going to be watching all 6 games this weekend?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that between, well, actually, we have to be at a basketball tournament all day Saturday, so we may not get to watch the early games. And then we got church on Sunday. So in between church and basketball, we will be watching football. And yeah, I have a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old son, and an 8-year-old daughter. My 8-year-old daughter enjoys being in the room with us while we're watching football, but she will not watch football.
Yeah.
She works on whatever crap she's making, and maybe on occasion will cheer for some name that she remembers from our family fantasy league that we have. But that's about all it is. So as a family, we do enjoy it. We have a fantasy league that we're a part of, and so that's kind of ramped up the interest,
Yeah.
if you will. My wife is
for that fantasy team, the fantasy league.
I don't know.
That's all right. You don't have to share it, or you don't have to talk about
Yeah,
it.
Justin beat me in the championship.
Yeah. Of your family league? Justin's a part of your family league?
Actually,
Wow.
strange
You hear
thing,
that, Justin?
There you.
Justin is a part of my family. We are actually related.
Yes.
How so?
We're second cousins.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were going to say brothers in Christ.
No, yeah.
I was waiting for that punchline.
We are that.
Yeah.
Yes, we are that.
Yeah. We are, but our moms are our first cousins, and so that's a connection we have. So we had a small little league that we did. Yeah, small little league that we did, and Justin was a part of it, and he came in and treated my children like they didn't matter and beat them, like left them crying in the corner.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we enjoy watching football together. We especially like college football, and as I mentioned earlier, we are Iowa State Cyclones fans. So we
you legitimately are.
We legitimately are. My wife grew up in Ames, so she's a huge fan. I just love college football more than anything else. So I've become an Iowa State fan as well.
Wow. And every year they're talking about your coach going somewhere.
Matt Campbell.
His name's always in the running.
Because no one can imagine a guy would want to stay in Little Ames. You know, a guy that comes in and turns a program around. That no one can imagine the guy would want to just stay there.
Yeah.
You know,
they do the same thing with Kirk Ferentz too at Iowa, where it's like, and both those guys I think are solid coaches and probably do well anywhere, but just have the right personality to stay in Iowa.
That's right.
Their whole careers. It's good for them. It's cool.
Yeah.
Justin, what about you?
No one watches football with me. They're in the room. I mean, they're present. Carson would be my 9-year-old would be present, and Hudson would be there. My 4-year-old, my 3-year-old, 4-year-old. Did he just turn 3 or 4?
4.
4. Yeah, that's right. He just turned 4. Yeah. I mean, I'll turn on the Bears, but I just don't have any fun watching them right now. And so the last half of the season was very spurious for me. I didn't watch a whole lot of it just because I didn't want to watch the Red Rocket. I didn't want to look at Matt Nagy's face. I didn't want to see any of that. So I have a love-hate relationship with the Bears right now. I'm very cold towards them. I just feel like they have let me down too much, and they're not doing enough to win. And so it's hard for me right now. So no, my family's not real involved in football. I don't think my wife could name one NFL player right now if you asked her. She might say Brett Favre, maybe. Brett Favre would pop up for some reason. But no, I don't think she could remember anybody else.
How about you?
No, there's I'm in Justin's boat here. My wife would be thrilled if I never watched another football game again. My kids will they'll run in and be like, "Oh, my daughter, my one daughter's 4. She'll be like, I'm rooting for." She'll be like, well, what she usually does is, "What team are you rooting for, Daddy?" And I tell her, and then she'll just say the opposite team is who she's rooting for. Or she'll come in and say, "I want the red team," or something like that. And then she'll run back out of the room and go play with her Barbies or something. But yeah, my son he'll ask more about results of games. But if I express any emotion, whether it's positive or negative, and I make any type of loud noise, regardless of the whether I'm excited or upset, the family gets upset, and then it's just like, so I have to remain in a neutral state, which is my default emotion. But yeah, when I'm watching the Browns, it's hard not to get a little bit upset. So my wife doesn't always understand the, like, a sports fan thing, where it's like, I watch the game, it's over, like I've moved on most of the time. Or it's like, I'm not actually mad, I'm just like yelling at the TV, like, "Run the ball, Stefanski, why aren't you running the ball?" And then it's just like, so she just like, she doesn't understand. But if she was a big football fan, I know she'd act the same way. But maybe it's best that she's not.
You mentioned about your family kind of responding negatively when you have an outburst. My son, my 15-year-old son, this is how sad I sound and how sad I feel, is that my 15-year-old son was a baby when the Bears were in the Super Bowl against the Colts. And I don't know if you recall that game, but that was a game where, to open the game, the kickoff to Devin Hester, and Devin Hester made this electric return, and it was the most glorious thing you ever seen. And my dad and I were sitting together watching this game, and I'm not usually a yeller when it comes to football. I watch very intently, and sometimes I'll get frustrated at the Bears, but I usually I try to stay even keel when I watch football. And we just started screaming, and my little baby son, who's now 15, it's been 15 years since that happened, he just started bawling, just cried and cried and cried, and wouldn't like watch the rest of the game at all with me because he was afraid, because we were so excited that the Bears were going to win the Super Bowl because the kickoff was returned for a touchdown. Nope.
Last year in the Browns Steelers playoff game, which the Browns went in, they were like, the whole coaching staff was out with a certain popular illness. And then I think they're missing a couple offensive linemen stuff too. So they like bring this guy up from North Dakota or something, like, "Hey, you're starting on the offensive line today." So it's like, I think they were touchdown underdogs or 10-point underdogs or something. But they start off that game just crazy. And then I did the exact same thing. I'm holding my daughter, my youngest, and she was only a few months old at the time. I'm just watching it down in the basement by myself. And then the Steelers hiked the ball over Roethlisberger's head, like the first play of the game. The Browns score a touchdown. I'm like, "Yeah!" And then she starts crying. So then I like look at her. I start smiling and laughing, and then she's laughing. So then they just like kept scoring and scoring. So I'd keep being like, "Yeah!" And then I just like have to keep like staring at her and smiling. It was like didn't know how to handle success. But then I think even the rest of my family was like, just assumed I was mad, probably because of there's not normally much to cheer about for the Browns. So maybe
we got one more game.
Maybe one day my kids will sit down and watch a game, a whole game. "Dad, can we spend Saturday watching college football together?"
If my son grows up to only hate the Packers, that will be enough for me. All right, so last game here, Cardinals and Rams. It's going to be their third meeting of the season. Cardinals are 11-6. They've split the series 1-1. Cardinals are 8-1 on the road, but they've lost 4 of their last 5. The Rams are 4-point favorites. They've won 5 of their last 6.
And this game is going to be in LA, the Rams' new stadium, or the city of Los Angeles' new stadium that's shared between the Rams and the San Diego Chargers. So what are you guys thinking about
Los
this
Angeles.
game? What did I say? San Diego?
Yeah.
I even meant to not say San Diego because I was talking about the stadium in LA. But it's hard not to say it. Junior Seau, you know.
Yeah.
This is the only, I mean, the first time ever that they've had a Monday night playoff game, right?
Yeah.
That's weird. I don't understand that scheduling, but that's what they did. You know, I think that this one of these two teams really has a good chance of being in the Super Bowl. I think both of them could be. I actually think that, you know, while I like Kyler Murray, I think he's really flashy and can do some things. What is he, 1-5 against the Rams? You know, he's thrown 7 touchdowns and 6 interceptions against the Rams. He has not done much good against them at all. I think the Rams are obviously as far as yards go, the best receiver. Cooper Kupp is playing, you know, out of his mind. He's just pretty much Mr. Go-To. You can trust him anytime, throw him the ball, get the first down. You know, I think that I think if the Rams put it together and they're able to protect Matthew Stafford, able to get a little bit with the running game, which they haven't had to do much. You know, they haven't had to do a whole lot of work there with the running game, but just able to keep the defense honest. I think that that it's going to be that the Rams have a really good chance of being the team coming out of the NFC to the Super Bowl this year. So I'm picking the Rams, obviously, above the Cardinals.
I will also pick the Rams. Part of the reason is why DeAndre Hopkins is out. He will not play this week, and the Cardinals are 3-4 without him. Over the last 6 games, Kyler Murray's quarterback rating has been 89.3. He started off really hot. He was having an MVP level season, and then he's cooled way down. I think the Cardinals are pretenders, and which is sad to say. The Rams entered the playoffs with an offense that ranks 7th in average points, 5th in average passing yards per game, and they added Von Miller. They added Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. has had 25 catches and 5 touchdowns in 7 games, and Von Miller has had 5 sacks in the last 4 games. So they added them. I mean, look at all the firepower the Rams have. They have Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp. The only issue that the Rams could run into is turnovers, interceptions. Matthew Stafford hasn't protected the ball well and has made some really risky decisions. He had a really horrible interception, I believe, in Week 18. It just looked – he threw into triple coverage. It just looked bad. But I'm going to go with the Rams on this one. I think the Rams win decidedly against the Cardinals.
Yeah, what concerns me the most, I think, is Matthew Stafford and these interceptions he's been throwing, especially so many result in pick sixes, which seems like statistically that would not happen as often as it is unless there is something that he's doing and defenses are picking up on where they're able to jump these routes or whatever they're doing. I guess I'd have to see video of how the pick sixes occur, but I don't think it's a fluke that he keeps throwing pick sixes, and the amount of interceptions he's thrown over the last month or so, even though they've been winning, is concerning, especially in the playoffs when things seem to get tighter and possessions are more valuable. And the Cardinals, that seems like the exact type of thing that they would need to happen to be able to outscore the Rams is to get one of those, that type of a free touchdown where the offense doesn't have to move the ball on their own. Yeah, but Kyler Murray last year started off red hot and then finished the season just below average. And it's almost, we're experiencing the same thing last year. They just have more wins than they did a year ago, where they just cooled down considerably the second half of the season. I don't know if that's teams figuring them out or what's going on there, but it's hard to go and pick them to win against a Rams team that is very well rounded and they have a lot of talent. When Odell Beckham is probably your number 3 receiver, that's a pretty good roster. I mean, he's not who he once was, and Browns fans are a little bitter that he's even just playing okay right now because he was so useless for us in Cleveland. But yeah, I like the Rams defense is very good when you've got Von Miller, when you've got Aaron Donald, 2 of the best at their position in the last 10 years. And then their secondary's good. And they just signed Eric Weddle, who's like 37, who I think hasn't played in a couple of years or whatever. Not that he's going to, I think, contribute much. That's like a LeBron James type of player he would sign, where it's like, hey, that guy made an all-star team once. Like, let's sign him. And then they're like, but he's 45 years old. What are you doing? I don't care. He's an all-star. That's my take on LeBron. One of the greatest players ever, but the worst GM in the history of the NBA. But yeah, I like the Rams to win here. I don't really like either of these teams going forward because the Rams just, like, whenever I watch them, it's like I want them to be like so much better than they are. They just like aren't. Like that's how it's been since. Like, they went to the Super Bowl that one year, but even in their playoff path to the Super Bowl, they weren't that pretty, second greatest show on turf that you saw throughout the year. And it's like ever since then, they've been just kind of like, I don't even know if winning ugly is the right word, because they have, like, the box scores usually look pretty good, but even their last game against the 49ers almost doubled their yardage. And then the 49ers ultimately won, but it's just, I don't know, I'm just like not in love with the Rams and how they play. Like, the defense has to carry them, but there's, supposed to be or they're perceived to be, I guess, a more offensive team, but they're just not, even though they got Cooper Kupp, who is a lot of fun to watch, and all those other receivers and a good running game. It's just not ever all there, maybe at the same time for each game or something. It's like a better version of the Browns to me.
I've never been a real believer in Matthew Stafford. I always feel like he's a guy with a great arm that obviously playing for the Lions, just unfulfilled talent, unfulfilled promises with him. But it was at the same time, man, he could throw. He could throw like he's good, and he does a really good job. And I think Sean McVay, he's one of those guys that I kind of I see in really high regard. I think he knows how to put his team in a position to win.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it depends on who they are. They could have some, kind of like the Chiefs. They have some clunkers. Where you just kind of like, where did that come from? But when they put it all together, and you get these offensive gurus, Andy Reid and Sean McVay, and these quarterbacks that could throw the ball all over the world, if they put it together, I think the Rams may be the most complete team if they put everything together because of their defense and because of what they can do. Now the Bucs are great, but the Rams are good.
And they'll get Cam Akers back. this week. They'll get Cam Akers back, which is huge. So they'll have him spelling Sony Michel. Yeah, and the Cardinals will be without J.J. Watt as well. So there's just a lot against the Cardinals this week.
J.J. Watt always assumed to not be playing for like the last 5 years.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Like his annual season-ending injury that he gets, which is like, I loved watching him play. Like there was a game against the Browns where he's caught a touchdown. I think he scored a defensive touchdown, and it was like that was fun, just like witnessing it. Even though he beat my team, but it's like just for a guy to just like be that dominant as he was with Houston, it was a lot of fun. And T.J. Watt is the same thing too. Or both those guys, it's like you expect them to in the fourth quarter when the game's on the line. It's like you're surprised if they don't make a play there. I wish he wasn't injured. It would be fun to see him get a Super Bowl ring at some point. But yeah, what's going to happen now? All right, so you'll have to send me your picks and whatnot. I don't know if I'll remember them all, and then we'll maybe meet back next week, see who's winning, who's got the best record so far. And then break down next week's games and have some more fun. Talk about some different topics too.
That'd be fun.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Enjoy the nameless podcast football here.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe next week we'll have a name for it. Start
Hey,
selling some merch.
We're gonna have to post it somehow. So
Yeah.
Are you gonna post it up and then we'll retweet it, or what's gonna happen?
Hold on. I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll talk about how that will go down.
Sounds
So this
good.
is us signing off.
Sign off.